My name is Devin Hartley. I'm 34, and 3 weeks ago, I walked away from what I thought was a 2-year relationship, only to find out I'd been the only one calling it a relationship at all. He said it like it was a harmless correction, like I'd simply misread a sign. We were never exclusive, my boyfriend told me. You just assumed. I remember the exact way his voice landed on the word assumed, like it was the punchline to a joke I didn't know I was part of. Like the problem wasn't what he'd done, only that I had the audacity to believe in us. I nodded. That's the part people don't understand when they hear this story. They imagine screaming, crying, a glass thrown at a wall, but all I did was nod, because in that moment, something inside me went perfectly still, like my brain hit an emergency shutoff valve to keep my heart from bursting. Got it, I said. Not because I got it, but because I suddenly realized if I said anything else, I might beg him to explain how 2 years of shared rent, shared holidays, shared toothbrush space didn't count as exclusive, and I refused to beg for something that should have been obvious. For 2 years, I thought I was living inside a slow build kind of love, not the flashy kind people post online, the quiet kind. The kind that sneaks up on you through routine until you look around one day and think, oh, this is my person. His name was Declan Pierce. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue on a Saturday afternoon in late spring, the kind of day where the sunlight makes everyone feel prettier than they are, and the air smells like charcoal and fresh-cut grass and possibility. He was standing near the grill, laughing at something someone said, holding a paper plate like he didn't know what to do with it. When he turned and our eyes met, I felt that stupid, cliché moment people talk about, that little jolt, that ridiculous, immediate warmth in your chest that makes you think the universe is winking at you. Declan was easy to talk to. Too easy. Funny without trying, smart without showing off. He had this calm, steady way of looking at you when you spoke, like what you were saying mattered, like you weren't just noise in the background of his life. We started talking that day and didn't stop for hours. I remember how I kept drifting back to him, even when I tried not to, like my body knew where it wanted to be before my brain could catch up. Before I left, he asked for my number, and that evening he texted me first. Simple, no games. Made it home, had fun talking to you. It felt mature, safe, the kind of thing you tell yourself is a good sign when you're 34 and you're tired of being somebody's lesson. Our first date was a week later. Dinner at a casual Italian place, then drinks downtown. We talked until they started stacking chairs on tables, and the bartender gave us that polite, exhausted look that meant, please go home and continue your emotional bonding somewhere else. When he walked me to my car, he kissed me like he'd been thinking about it all night, and it felt natural, easy, right. By month 3, we were practically living together. Not officially, not with a big conversation. It just happened the way intimacy sometimes does. He'd stay at my place most nights. He kept clothes in my closet. He had his own drawer in the bathroom, his toothbrush next to mine, his cologne on my shelf, his phone charger snaked across my nightstand like it belonged there. I'd wake up on a Tuesday and see his shoulder beside me, and it didn't feel like having a guest, it felt like sharing a life. By month 6, he suggested we get a place together. I mean, Declan said one night, scrolling through listings on his phone like it was the most practical thing in the world, we're already together every day. We're basically paying double for no reason. It just makes financial sense. Financial sense. Those words should have stayed sharp in my memory right then, should have made me pause. But I heard something else. I heard, I'm choosing you. I heard, let's build. So I agreed immediately because it felt like the natural next step, the grown-up next step, the kind of step that means you're not just passing time. We found a decent 2-bedroom apartment in a modern building in a good neighborhood, parking included. Close to both our jobs, the kind of place with a lobby that smelled faintly like new paint and expensive candles. I remember moving boxes in on that first day and feeling genuinely excited, like we were laying down a foundation, like this was the beginning of the version of my life that finally made sense. For the next year and a half, we lived like what I thought was a committed couple. We split rent and utilities 50-50 down the middle. We took turns cooking dinner. He made these elaborate chicken bowls on Wednesdays, like he was auditioning for a meal prep commercial. I did pasta Mondays because it was easy and comforting and made the apartment smell like garlic and warmth. We watched our shows together almost every night. He got me into this crime documentary series that made me double-check the locks before bed. I got him hooked on stand-up specials. We went to his family events. He came to mine. Holiday dinners, birthday parties, random Sunday brunches where the whole table felt like noise and laughter and clinking glasses. My parents loved him. My mother would call him directly sometimes just to ask how he was or to tell him about a recipe she thought he'd like. And Declan would answer, charming as ever, voice warm and easy, like he was already part of us. My friends liked him too. They started inviting both of us to things as a unit. Bring Declan. You guys coming? Tell him we said hi. Everyone assumed we were solid. I assumed we were solid. And I don't think I'm crazy for that. When someone lives in your home, pays half the bills, sleeps in your bed, sits beside you at family tables, laughs with your friends, texts you throughout the day like you're their person, it's not unreasonable to assume you're in a relationship. I was already mentally planning the next steps. Not rushing, not obsessing, just thinking, the way you think when you're happy and you don't want to jinx it. I'd looked at rings online a few times, not because I wanted to propose, obviously, but because I'd caught myself imagining what it would feel like if he did. I'd even started putting away extra money each month into a savings account I labeled future plans. And then came the conversation that shattered everything. But the first crack, what I didn't realize was a crack at the time, came on a Tuesday evening in late October. I'd gotten home from an exhausting day, back-to-back meetings, a deadline that wouldn't stop breathing down my neck, the kind of day where your brain feels bruised. All I wanted was to collapse on the couch, order takeout, and let the world go quiet with him. Declan was already there, sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He barely looked up when I walked in. "Hey," I said, dropping my bag and kicking off my shoes. "Hey," he said. No smile, no "how was your day," just a flat greeting like I was a roommate passing through. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, drank half of it at the sink, and tried not to read into it. Then I came back and sat on the opposite end of the couch. "What do you want for dinner? I can order something." Declan didn't look up. "Already ate." I blinked. "Oh, okay. When?" "Earlier." "With who?" I asked. Casually, just conversation, just normal. That's when he finally looked up, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite place at first. Not guilt, not exactly, more like irritation that I'd stepped too close to a line I wasn't supposed to see. "Does it matter?" he said. I laughed once because it felt ridiculous. "I mean, no, I'm just asking." "A friend," he said, clipped. "Which friend?" His jaw tightened like I'd insulted him. "You don't know her." Her. The word landed in my stomach like a stone. "Huh?" I said slowly. "I didn't know you had friends I haven't met." "You have lots of friends you haven't met," Declan snapped. Then he looked back down at his phone like the conversation was over, and the blue light from the screen washed his face in this cold, private glow. And for the rest of that night, I tried to tell myself I was overthinking, tried to tell myself it was nothing. But something had shifted, not loudly, quietly, like the floorboards of my life had started to creak in a way they never had before. And once you hear that sound, you can't unhear it. The worst part wasn't that he ate dinner with another woman. The worst part was how easily he made me feel like I'd done something wrong for asking. That night, Declan barely spoke again. He scrolled. I watched the TV without hearing it. The apartment, our apartment, felt like it had a thin glass wall running through the middle of it, and I was on the side that didn't get answers. When he finally stood up and announced he was taking a shower, it wasn't a casual, "I'm gonna clean up." It was a dismissal. I sat on the couch after the bathroom door clicked shut, staring at the blank reflection of the black TV screen, and tried to pinpoint the moment I became someone who second-guessed her own reality. Because I wasn't jealous by nature. I wasn't the type to check phones or demand passwords or count minutes. But there was a difference between trust and being kept in the dark on purpose, and that her didn't feel accidental. It felt like a crack in a carefully sealed jar, one quick slip that showed there was something inside he didn't want me to see. Later in bed, he lay beside me with his back turned, no arm draped over my waist, no absent-minded touch, just space. I told myself he was tired. I told myself work was stressing him out. I told myself everything I needed to tell myself so I could fall asleep. But my body didn't believe me. My body stayed alert, like it was waiting for something to happen. Over the next week, it was the small things at first, little shifts that, if you looked at them one at a time, seemed harmless, normal even. People have moods, people have off weeks, but together they began to form a pattern so clear it scared me. Declan started angling his phone away from me, not dramatically, not like a cartoon villain hiding a secret text, just subtle. If I walked behind him while he sat at the kitchen counter, the screen would tilt just enough that I couldn't glance at it. If I sat next to him on the couch, he'd tuck the phone closer to his chest, thumb moving faster. He also started taking calls in the bedroom. We'd always taken calls wherever, living room, kitchen, balcony, right in front of each other. It wasn't a thing, it was just life. Now his phone would ring and he'd glance at the screen and stand up too quickly. "Just a second," he'd say, already walking away, and the bedroom door would close, not slam, just shut, a boundary. One night I heard him laugh in there, a soft laugh, the kind he used to give me when we were talking in bed, when something was just between us. I stared at the bedroom door like it might open and explain itself. It didn't. Then there were the nights out. He started seeing friends more often, which would have been fine, healthy even, except he never offered details anymore. Before, it would be, "I'm grabbing a drink with Sullivan," or "I'm meeting Wells after work," and he'd come home and tell me some dumb story. Now it was just, "I'm going out." Where? Just out. With who? A couple people. It was like his vocabulary had shrunk to avoid specificity. And sometimes he'd come home later than he said he would, not by an hour, by 3. He'd walk in like nothing happened, keys on the counter, jacket tossed on the chair, shoes kicked off like he'd been out running errands. If I asked, he had vague explanations. Traffic, lost track of time, my phone died. And I really tried to be the version of me that didn't make this into a thing. Because if I made it into a thing, then I had to admit it might already be a thing. So instead, I did what a lot of women do when their instincts start screaming. I turned the volume down on myself. I watched, I waited, I gave him space, and I felt stupid for doing it. On Friday night, I tested something, not in a petty way, in a desperate, "am I imagining this?" way. I made dinner, real dinner, not leftovers. I lit the little candle we kept on the kitchen table, the one that smelled like sandalwood and vanilla. I even put on music, the playlist Declan used to love. When he walked in, I smiled like everything was fine. "Hey," I said, "I made food." He glanced at the table, then at me like it was a surprise he didn't know how to respond to. "Looks good," he said. He ate. He said very little. He didn't ask about my day. He didn't notice the candle until it had burned down halfway. And when his phone buzzed, he checked it instantly, too fast, and his whole posture shifted. Not a lot, just enough, like a person hearing their real name in a crowded room. He stood up. "I'm going to take this." "Who is it?" I asked lightly, forcing the same tone someone uses when they're trying not to sound like they are drowning. He didn't meet my eyes. Just work stuff. And then he went into the bedroom, door closed again. By Sunday, my chest felt tight all the time. Not dramatic anxiety, not panic attacks, More like I couldn't get a full breath because my body was bracing. I kept replaying our last year and a half like a film strip, searching for moments that didn't match the story I believed. Were there other slips? Other hers I'd ignored? Had he always been this careful, and I'd just been too in love with the version of him he performed for me? I hated myself for thinking like that, because the truth was, I didn't want to be right. I didn't want to be the woman who got played like a cliché. I didn't want to look back and realize I'd been sleeping next to someone who was lying through his teeth every single day. So I asked him directly. It was the following Monday evening. We were both home, sitting at the kitchen table. I'd made pasta, penne with marinara, garlic bread, simple comfort food, the kind of meal that says, "We live here, this is home." Declan was picking at his plate, moving noodles around more than eating them. His phone sat face down beside his fork. That alone felt like an insult, like he couldn't even let the screen be visible in the same room as me. I set my fork down. "Can we talk about something?" I asked. His look up, expression guarded. "Sure." And for 1 second I saw it, the calculation, like he was already deciding what version of himself he needed to be for this conversation. "Are we okay?" I asked. His eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean us." My voice stayed calm, but my hands were cold. "Are we okay? Because you've been distant and secretive, and I don't want to guess. If something's wrong, I'd rather you just tell me." He leaned back in his chair, exhaling like I'd exhausted him. "Nothing's wrong," he said. "Declan," I tried again, softer. "You've been taking calls in the bedroom. You've been going out and not saying where. You ate dinner with someone last week and got defensive when I asked who. That's not normal for us." His jaw tightened. "I'm busy," he said. "That's it." "Busy with what?" "Work, life, friends, normal stuff." "Friends," I repeated, keeping my gaze steady. "Okay, which friends?" And that's when his tone changed. "What is this?" he snapped. "Are you interrogating me right now?" The word hit me like a slap. Interrogating? Like I was a cop and he was a suspect? Like 2 years of building a life together didn't earn me the right to ask a question? "No," I said carefully. "I'm asking my boyfriend a straightforward question." He laughed, one short, humorless sound. "Boyfriend?" he echoed. My stomach dropped. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes sharp now. "Devin, you're doing a lot. You're reading into things. You're assuming stuff." There it was again, assuming. He made it sound like a flaw in my character. "You're making it weird," he continued. "I'm allowed to have friends. I'm allowed to have privacy." "I'm not saying you can't have," I forced my voice not to shake. "But why does it feel like you're hiding parts of your life from me?" Declan stared at me for a long moment, and then he said something that made my blood run cold. Not because it was loud, but because it was so controlled. "Maybe because you react like this," he said. "Maybe because you turn everything into a problem." I felt the room tilt slightly. The candle on the table flickered, and suddenly I could see the trap he was building. If I pushed, I was crazy. If I asked, I was controlling. If I wanted clarity, I was dramatic. And the sickest part, I felt myself start to question my own instincts. I felt myself start to wonder if maybe I really was overreacting. That's what gaslighting does. It doesn't make you believe the liar. It makes you stop believing yourself. I swallowed hard. "Okay," I said quietly. Declan's expression softened a fraction, like he thought he'd won. "Good," he said, "because I'm not doing this. I'm not going to sit here and justify my life because you're insecure." Insecure. There it was, the final label, the neat little box he wanted to shove me into so he wouldn't have to answer anything. I stared at him across the table, at the man who slept in my bed, ate my food, split my rent, kissed my forehead in the morning. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't confused. He wasn't misunderstood. He was comfortable. comfortable living a life where I was close enough to benefit him, but never close enough to question him. And I didn't know yet how far that comfort went, but I could feel it like thunder in the distance. The breakup didn't happen in a blaze of emotion. It happened in silence. That night, after the kitchen table conversation, Declan went to bed early without saying goodnight. I stayed up on the couch long after the apartment went quiet, staring at nothing, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant traffic outside like they were clues to a puzzle I couldn't solve. By morning, something in me had shifted, not cracked, hardened. I watched him move around the apartment like he always did, coffee brewing, keys clinking, jacket shrugged on, like we hadn't just stood on the edge of something dangerous. When he kissed my cheek before leaving, it felt rehearsed, polite, like an apology he didn't mean. That's when I knew whatever was happening, he wasn't going to tell me the truth voluntarily. 3 days later, he did it. We were in the living room, a random Thursday evening. The TV was on, some show neither of us was actually watching. He muted it without looking at me. "We need to talk," he said. My heart didn't race, it just sank. "I don't think this is working anymore," Declan continued, tone calm, almost professional. "I feel like we've been misaligned for a while." Misaligned, another word designed to avoid responsibility. I nodded slowly. "Okay." He glanced at me like he'd expected more. Tears, questions, negotiation. "You've been assuming a lot about us, and that's on you." There it was, the thesis statement. "What do you mean?" I asked, even though I already knew. "He meant we were never exclusive," he said. "You just assumed we were." I waited for him to smile, to say he was joking. He didn't. My chest went hollow. "Declan," I said carefully, "we lived together. That doesn't automatically mean anything. Plenty of people live together for convenience." Convenience? Like a couch? Like a subscription? Like I hadn't folded his laundry, or sat beside him at his uncle's funeral, or planned my holidays around his family's schedule? "He split bills," he continued. "We never had a conversation about labels or exclusivity." I thought of every night he'd crawled into bed beside me, every time he'd introduced me to someone without hesitation, every family photo I stood in, and I realized something devastating. He wasn't lying. Not technically, he just let me fill in the blanks with hope. "So that's it?" I asked. He shrugged slightly. "I think it's for the best." That was when I could have exploded, could have screamed, could have demanded answers. But I didn't, because suddenly clarity felt more powerful than emotion. "Okay," I said. His eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Okay," I repeated. "I'll move out. I'll take my stuff this weekend." "That's fine," he said, like he hadn't just erased 2 years of my life. I stood up, turned off the TV, and went to the bedroom. He didn't follow. I moved out quietly. No fights, no accusations, no social media posts, just boxes. I packed my clothes, my books, the framed photos I couldn't look at yet. I left the furniture we bought together because I didn't want to negotiate over a couch while my heart was bleeding. The day I left, he wasn't home. He'd planned it that way. Cowardice disguised as scheduling. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter right beside the fruit bowl we never finished, and I walked out. The days after were a blur. Grief didn't arrive dramatically. It crept in during small moments, when I reached for my phone to text him something funny, when I passed the grocery store we always went to on Sundays, when I woke up in my friend's guest room and forgot just for a second that my life had changed. What hurt the most wasn't missing him. It was realizing how much of myself I'd given to a story that only existed in my head. I replayed everything. The bills, the holidays, my mother calling him, my friends calling us "you guys." Had I been the only one reading the script? A week after I moved out, my phone buzzed with a message request. It was from Rowan Pierce, Declan's cousin. We'd met several times, family dinners, birthdays, holidays. She was always nice, quiet, thoughtful, the kind of person who listened more than she spoke. We weren't close, but we were friendly. Rowan. Hey Devin, can we talk? It's about Declan. There's something you should know. I stared at the message for a long time, long enough for my screen to dim. I almost ignored it. I didn't want more. More explanations, more pain, more threads tying me back to him. But something about the wording, something you should know, felt heavy, important. Me. Okay, what's going on, Rowan? Rowan, can we meet for coffee? I really don't want to do this over text. My stomach tightened. That night, I barely slept. We met the next afternoon at a cafe downtown. When I walked in, Rowan was already there, sitting in a corner booth, hands wrapped tightly around her mug. She looked up when she saw me, eyes flicking quickly toward the door, then back to me. Nervous, scared. Thanks for meeting me, she said, stirring her coffee even though there was nothing left to stir. No problem, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. What's going on? She took a deep breath. I don't know how to say this without hurting you, she said. My chest tightened. Just say it, I said softly. She looked me straight in the eyes. Devin, Declan is engaged. The word didn't register. Engaged? I blinked. What? He's been engaged for 6 months, she continued, to a woman he works with. They're getting married in the spring, April. I think the cafe noise faded. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Engaged, for 6 months, while living with me, while splitting rent, while sleeping beside me every night. I gripped the edge of the table to keep myself upright. You're sure? I whispered. She nodded. He told the family back in May, asked everyone not to post anything online, said they wanted to keep it private. My stomach turned. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you deserve to know, she said quickly. Because what he did to you is wrong, and it's been eating at me ever since I realized you didn't know. I swallowed hard. Does she know about me? Rowan shook her head. No, he told her he lived with a male roommate, some college friend who needed a place. I laughed once. It came out broken. So he was lying to both of us? Yes, she said. He travels for work a lot, 3 weeks out of every month. That's how he managed it. When he was gone, he was with you. When he was back, he had excuses. I felt sick, physically sick. How did no one tell me? How did your whole family know and say nothing? She looked down at her cup. We thought you knew, she admitted. We thought maybe you were okay with it, or that you'd broken up and decided to stay roommates for financial reasons. My hands started shaking. Everyone knew about her, I said slowly, not about me. Yes, she said. You were separate. He kept you separate. Compartmentalized. That word landed like a verdict. I sat there trying to breathe, trying to process the sheer scale of the deception. 6 months, a ring, a wedding, a future planned with someone else, while I was budgeting groceries and thinking about hours. Why would he do this? I asked finally. Rowan hesitated. I think he liked having security. You were stable, reliable, helped with bills, made his life easier. She has money, connections, the future he wanted. I nodded slowly. I wasn't surprised. I was devastated, but I wasn't surprised. I'm so sorry, she said. I thought you should know the truth. I thanked her, paid for both our coffees, even though she protested, and when I walked out of that cafe, the city felt different, sharper, like everything had been stripped down to its edges. And for the first time since the breakup, I felt something burn through the numbness. Not sadness, not grief. Anger. Pure, white-hot anger. Because I hadn't imagined anything. I hadn't assumed too much. I'd been lied to systematically for over a year. And I wasn't done with the truth yet. I didn't confront Declan right away. Not because I was scared, but because I needed the anger to finish forming. I walked for hours after leaving the cafe, past storefronts I didn't see, across intersections I didn't remember crossing. My phone buzzed a few times, friends, work emails, but I ignored everything. 6 months. Engaged for 6 months, while living with me, while splitting bills with me, while letting my mother ask him what he wanted for Thanksgiving. The rage didn't explode all at once. It built steadily, like pressure behind a locked door. Every step I took added another fact, another memory, another confirmation that I hadn't been mistaken. I'd been engineered. I stopped in a small park as the sun started dipping, sat on a cold bench, and finally let myself put it together. The angled phone, the closed bedroom door, the vague friends, the defensiveness. It hadn't been sloppiness, it had been logistics. I pulled out my phone and unblocked his number. Just once, I typed, slowly, deliberately, so I wouldn't say something I'd regret. Not because I wanted to protect him, but because I wanted the truth to land clean. Me. I know about the engagement. The message delivered instantly. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then reappeared. Declan. Who told you? No denial, no, what are you talking about? Just damage control. My hands were steady when I typed back. Me. Does it matter? Declan. Yes, it matters. Who was it? I could practically hear the panic behind the words, the scrambling, the mental checklist of people he needed to contain. Me. Someone who actually gives a damn about honesty. There was a pause this time. Longer. Then Declan. It's not what you think. You don't understand the situation. I laughed out loud, a sharp, humorless sound that startled the woman walking her dog nearby. Me. Really? Because I think you've been engaged for 6 months while living with me, splitting rent, sleeping in my bed, and letting me believe we were building a future. Am I wrong? The typing dots didn't come back. Minutes passed. Then 10. Nothing. That silence told me everything. Me. You have nothing to say because there is no explanation that makes this okay. I blocked his number again, this time for good. The fallout came fast. I didn't witness it directly, but I didn't need to. Rowan texted me 2 days later. Rowan, he's losing it. He's calling everyone, trying to figure out who told you. I told him it was me. I stared at the message, a mix of gratitude and sadness washing over me. Me. Thank you for telling the truth, Rowan. It needed to come out. And it did. Apparently, once Rowan spoke up, the rest of the family started comparing stories. Timelines didn't match, excuses unraveled. Someone told the fiancé. I don't know exactly how, whether it was a cousin, a mutual friend, or Declan himself trying to explain before someone else could. All I know is that within a week, the engagement was off. 6 months of planning canceled. A spring wedding gone. A future he thought he could keep hidden from consequences exposed. Declan's mother called me the following Sunday. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Devin, she said, her voice shaking. I had no idea. If I had known you were being strung along like that, I would have said something, I swear to you. I believed her because the shame in her voice was real. I'm so sorry, she said. What he did, it's unforgivable. It's not your fault, I told her, and I meant it. He lied to everyone. After that, I stopped hearing his name directly, but word travels. He couldn't afford the apartment on his own, lost it within the month, moved back in with his parents, friends distanced themselves, some cut him off entirely, others stayed polite but cautious. No one trusts a man who can live 2 lives that cleanly. He tried to reach me through mutual friends, apologies, regrets, claims that things got complicated. I declined every message. Because here's the thing about complications. They don't last a year and a half unless someone is benefiting from the confusion. People have asked me if I feel bad for him, if I regret exposing everything, if maybe I should have just walked away quietly and let karma handle it. I don't, not even a little. I didn't destroy his life. I told the truth. The truth did the rest. My life didn't magically improve overnight. Healing wasn't cinematic, but it was steady. I got a small studio apartment, nothing fancy, but completely mine. No shared shelves, no divided closets, no half futures hanging in the air. I started going to the gym again, reconnected with friends I'd neglected while I was busy building a life that didn't exist. I started saying yes to things: dinner invites, weekend trips, late night conversations that reminded me who I was before I shrank myself to fit someone else's convenience. And I learned something important. Assumptions aren't always wrong. When someone lives like your partner, integrates into your life like your partner, shows up to your family events, shares your bed, your bills, your days, it's not unreasonable to assume they're your partner. What's unreasonable is exploiting that assumption for 2 years while secretly planning a different future with someone else. Declan said we were never exclusive, and he was right about one thing. I did assume. I assumed he was a decent human being. That was my only real mistake.